Full disclosure, I am not a professional pattern grader. Pattern grading is actually a whole thing in itself. Usually a designer will have an in-house grader, or they'll get done somewhere else or outsource it, which is a bit less common these days. Most of the time, the factory that is production will do it there. So you'll send your sample size, your grade rules and specifications, and they'll do the grading when they do production. However, I got some of my patterns for my clicked pattern kits graded here in Sydney, and they did such a bad job. So I've bitten the bullet and now I do all my own grading myself. This is my K.I.S.S method to grading patterns. Hi, welcome to Pattern Making with Lee. Today we're going to talk about all things grading. As the title suggests, I'm going to keep the theory simple so when you have a complicated design, your head doesn't explode. In this video, I'll tell you what grading is and isn't. I'll also explain what grade rules are and how to distribute them. To be honest, the grade distribution charts are the real money shots in this video. They're the ones I share with my fashion students and also the ones I carry around with me in this little blue book. So I'll tell you when to take screenshots so you can print them off too. And last but not least, I'll show you how to grade your pattern manually. If you're doing it digitally, you can just press a button. And I'll share some tips to help you check your work. As someone who had a bit of a blocker towards grading, I really encourage you to get the skill under your belt. Firstly, it will help save you money. For example, a customer who bought my oversized shirt kit, she bought the block with the intention of sort of making it more of a jacket rather than a shirt, but she liked it so much that she wanted to make it smaller, so to make it into a shirt as well. So she sent me an email, I told her how to grade, and the same technique I'm going to share with you today, so you can resize your own patterns. And secondly, this is more probably for emerging designers, I guess. If you've made your own pattern, you understand it better than anyone else, so trust yourself, you can do this. When you create a pattern in the industry or for yourself, it's a certain size, right? Well, grading means increasing or decreasing the pattern proportionally to create different sizes. The look and the fit shouldn't change. This is different from what I call custom grading, where you're making a block or pattern fit your specific measurements. Say if you had a size 8 bust, size 12 waist, and a size 10 hip, you then blend between those different sizes to create a customized block or a customized pattern. This isn't grading, but I have done a whole video on this, which you can check out. I'll also leave a link in the description too. A grade rule outlines the incremental change in measurements for each size at a certain point. So how much bigger or smaller the pattern needs to be for each size at a certain location, such as the bust, waist, hip, neck, or shoulder. Take a look at my clicked torso block. This is the pattern measurement chart for my clicked torso block. Pattern measurement, not body or sample size measurement. They're different. This is the actual pattern measurements. By comparing the measurements for each size, you can see the grade rule I've used. At the bust, waist, and hip, each size is 5 centimeters, so 2 inches bigger than the previous size. So my grade rule was 2 inches for the bust, waist, and hip. I know people love to say things aren't standard, and I guess they aren't, but using 2 inches for a grade rule is pretty common for adult female woven fabrics. Another thing that's pretty standard or common is to have smaller sizes, so anything below a size 8. Some people like to do a 1-inch grade rather than 2-inch grade at the bust. Another thing that happens is for sizes over 16 or larger sizes, often the grade rule can get bigger, so rather than doing 2 inches for the bust, you could do 3 inches. Anyway, I usually do a 2-inch grade rule for the whole body circumference. That's what we're doing in this video. But we also need to think about how much bigger to make the neck and the shoulder and the armhole and other parts of the body. And also how we're going to distribute the grade rule. We can't just whack 2 inches on the side seam. This is where my grade distribution charts come in handy. These grade distribution charts will show you where and how much to add and subtract from specific points on the pattern. Let's start with the basic dress block. And screenshot. If you want to increase the length between the bust, waist, and hip, these are my recommendations. Quick note, these 1/4 and 1/2 measurements are not inches, they are ratios to distribute the grade by. For example, my grade rule for the whole body circumference was 5 centimeters, so 2 inches. To make things easier, let's divide the body into 4 sections, left and right, front and back. Then, divide the grade rule by the number of sections. This will give you the amount each section needs to be made bigger or smaller when it's graded. Then, to work out how much bigger or smaller to make the pattern at each distribution point, times it by the ratios. So 1/2 would equal 0.62 centimeters and 1/4 would equal 0.3125 centimeters or 1/8 of an inch. Lucky imperial people, your measurements are great, but for us metric users, they're a bit. So I round them up and down to these. And that's how much to add at each point for a 5 centimeter or 2-inch grade rule. You might not be asking this now, but you will when you go back and look at this later. What is happening with the sleeve? The line going across the sleeve cap makes sense. It matches the body, but the ones going vertically don't. Unlike the front and back patterns, the sleeve goes all the way around the arm circumference. So this distribution is just more even way to distribute that half ratio we add to the side seam. So rather than adding half here, you add 1/4 and then 1/4 at the top on both sides of the center line, which is half in total. Anyway, apologies if I blew your mind with too much math there, but I want to explain that because when I first started grading, I saw that chart and I was like, what is going on with the sleeve? So I want to explain it to you. Anyway, before I show you how to grade, I'll quickly share my distribution charts for bodice, skirts, and pants. For a bodice block, you can use the exact same distribution. For a skirt block, adjust the lines a little bit, and remember you can always add additional horizontal lines to make the patterns longer as you grade. For trousers and pants, I follow this guide. If you want to increase the length too, I do it here. That's a basic introduction to grade rules and grade distribution charts. Before I show you how to grade patterns, I want to let you know that I'm planning on doing a more advanced grading video on how to apply these basic theories to more complex garments. So please let me know what you're struggling with in the comments, or if you've got any questions about doing more complex grading. I'm also going to reach out to some old colleagues who are professional graders, get some amazing tips for you. There are two different methods for grading patterns manually: shift and slash and spread. The shift method is where you actually shift your pattern when you're grading it. So you start tracing around the pattern outline, and when you reach one of those distribution lines on the chart, you stop tracing, shift the pattern across by the grade rule amount, and then you continue tracing until you reach the next line. But I prefer to use the slash and spread method, because you cut into the pattern along the distribution lines and spread it to make it bigger, or overlap it if you're making a smaller size. I'm a compulsive checker. I love being able to go back and actually look and see what I've done to my pattern so I can check my work before I finish a pattern. But I also recommend the slash and spread method to beginners because you're less likely to make mistakes. And once you finish slashing a pattern, you need to go back and blend the seams, which means finding the midpoint between two uneven lines or points. After you do that, it's good practice to go back and true your joining seams. So you literally lie any joining seams on top of each other and check they're the same length and all the notches match up. If they don't, that could be a red flag sign going wrong with your grading. So look at those problem areas and see what's happened. If you need more help checking your patterns, head to my website, clickedpatternKits.com. Sign up for my newsletter, and I'll send you the 10-step pattern checklist I use to check patterns before I send them to production, plus a 10% discount code of your first clicked pattern kit order. I hope that all made sense and you got some great screenshots so you can go away and practice grading yourselves. And also, when you're grading your own patterns, use a bit of common sense. Say you had like a gathered skirt where the pattern's pretty much a rectangle, you can grade it all at one point and then adjust the notches if needed at the top. Save yourself the time, make it a bit easier. Same with skirts and pants. This is a basic general distribution chart, but honestly, if my pattern looked like this, I would combine these distribution points into one. Same with the skirt. Both the top and bottom seams are pretty straight, so it won't make much difference. I can just blend across them. As I said, I'm planning on doing an advanced grading video where I'll apply these basic theories to more complex designs. So I may regret this, but hit me with the hard stuff. I've already had a request for cowl necklines, so I'll include those. But any other garments you've got problems with, or any complex grading questions you have that you'd like a professional advice on, please leave a comment and I'll get include those in the video. And in the meantime, subscribe to my channel and check out these pattern drafting videos to help make your own designs.